Hey guys, it's Tori, and today I'm going to be ranking what I read in February and discussing some possibilities for March. I had an incredible reading month in February. In fact, I still have about 4 days left in the month, so I have a couple of books I'm working on. One I think I for sure will finish by the end of the month. The other I potentially will, but it is on the chunkier side, so we'll have to see. But we'll get into that in a moment. I'm going to make this ranking fast because I have 7 books to discuss here, plus several that I intend to read hopefully in March, or possibly will read in March. So kicking off with my one Febregency read, unfortunately, was The Mysteries of Udolpho by Anne Radcliffe, which I gave 2.75 out of 5 stars. This is a story following a young girl who ends up losing both of her parents, and she ends up being taken in by a guardian who is not very kind and who puts her in very dangerous situations. There's a lot of gothic elements, mysteries going on, and that's pretty much all you really need to know. I enjoyed myself a lot with this. I listened to the audiobook, and there were a lot of scenes and moments that it was great fun, and I was excited to read it. I always felt like it was probably at most like a 3.5 stars, depending on how things went. But it just was too long for me. Like, I feel like it just needed to be shorter. A lot of the events became very repetitious and a little bit boring for me because they were so repetitious. I did feel like the fallout of some of the mysteries was actually satisfactory, but I didn't like any of the characters. They all annoyed me at some point. And I did not like the romantic storyline that ended up occurring by the end, because the guy, honestly, nowadays we would view him as very toxic. Obviously back then they had a different idea, and this is meant to be a romantic, dramatic novel, but there's a lot of commentary on, you don't actually love me, because if you really loved me you would do this. A lot of that from him, and it was really obnoxious, and I did not like him, and I was really hoping that this book would subvert expectations and have her end up with someone else, but no, alas, no, she did not. So yeah, I just ended up being irritated by the characters and ended up feeling bored by the storyline because it was just too long for what it was doing. So that was unfortunate for Febregency, but hopefully we'll get into in a moment. I hopefully will start at least another thing to kind of end Febregency and move into next month that hopefully will add a little bit more of a positive flavor to my Febregency experience this year. But anyway, the next up we have Oedipus at Colonus by Sophocles. This is the second in the trilogy of Oedipus Rex, Oedipus the King, with the first one being Oedipus Rex or Oedipus the King, depending on what translation you have, and the third being Antigone. I had never read Oedipus at Colonus. That's not really one you read in school as much, and so I wanted to get into it. And I actually was surprised that I enjoyed it so much. I would say if I were to rank the 3 plays, it would actually just get better with each one. So Oedipus Rex is my least favorite, Oedipus at Colonus would be second, and then Antigone is my favorite. For my taste, I just feel like Oedipus at Colonus is focused on the fallout of the first book, or the first play, and the first play is really focused on these crazy events that occurred, which is interesting, and there's interesting writing, but it just doesn't really appeal to me as much. But the second one is really dealing with the fallout of that. We're getting to know Oedipus and his relationship with Antigone a little bit better. So I did end up really liking it and gave it, I think, 3.5 stars, maybe somewhere around there. Then I had a couple of 4 stars. So this next one is not in any of my vlogs. All of the classics I mentioned in this ranking, I have a vlog coming next week in which I read all of those except for this one. So this is the only one that I didn't really discuss in a vlog. There is one that will come out in a couple of weeks that I did start off just mentioning briefly my thoughts on it, but nothing really in depth. So I'll do a little more in depth here. But that is Wessex Tales by Thomas Hardy. This is a short story collection by Thomas Hardy. I believe it's his first short story collection he released, and I really liked it. I never really know how I'm going to feel about short story collections. Sometimes they're a success and other times they're really not. In this case, I really enjoyed pretty much all of them. There were a couple that maybe didn't appeal to my taste as much, but I didn't dislike any of them. And there were a few that I found very interesting, and in fact one had a character named Sally who is very, very interesting to me, to the point where I would say she's one of my new favorite characters in Hardy's works. And yeah, so I was really liking her and her story. There was some comedy in here. I will say a lot of them do end like how Hardy ends his novels, which with a lot of melancholy. Some definitely more tragic than others, but yes, there is a lot of that. There's some gothic supernatural elements in some of these stories. It was just great. I really, really liked it, and one I would definitely recommend if you like Hardy's novels and haven't tried his short stories, I felt like this was a really great one, and I'm glad I finally got to it. Then I have A Man Called Ove by Fredrik Backman, which I also gave 4 stars. Really loved it. Made me cry, made me very weepy. This follows an old man who has suffered a lot of grief in recent times, and he is coping with that, and a lot of people are sent his way who are able to help him through that time in his life. And it's just as sweet as it sounds and very well written. I love Bachman's writing style. It really works for me. And I'm excited to see the film with Tom Hanks because I think he'll do a great job with this. Then we have The Secrets of Hardwood Hall by Katie Lumsden. This is a book that is being released actually probably the day you're seeing this, at least in the US. I think the UK, it's coming out a bit later, closer into March, I think. But I really enjoyed this. It follows a young woman who has become a widow recently and is now becoming a governess for the son of a woman whose house is in a very isolated area of the country, and mysterious things happen there. And that's all I'm really going to say. I think that's enough to help you understand what this is about. There is a lot of inspiration from Jane Eyre, Tenant of Wildfell Hall, and some other Victorian works, and so that was wonderful to experience, and it has a lot of wonderful discussions in it. My favorite part about this book was there were a couple of characters such as the main character and also the little boy she's watching and the mother of that boy that I found very interesting. And then there were a lot of discussions and themes throughout the book that I really found fascinating and interesting to see Katie's approach to those things. And the fallout of the mystery was, I would say, pretty satisfying. So yes, definitely a great read, one I would highly recommend if you have not heard about it. If you have heard about it and weren't sure if you were going to get it, definitely give it a shot. It was wonderful. Katie's writing was so easy to get into. It was definitely an easy book to fly through and just enjoy. So yes, really enjoyed it. And there were just 2 books that ended up beating this out as far as my ranking goes. The first being A Tale of Two Cities by Charles Dickens. I really enjoyed this, not as much as Bleak House or David Copperfield. I do have a vlog. This is part of that classics vlog I mentioned, so don't worry, you'll get a lot more in-depth thoughts from me on this book. But for now, I'll just say I really love Sidney Carton. Madame Defarge was fascinating. I really liked Dr. Manette and Mr. Lorry. Those were probably my 4 favorite characters. I really liked the end of this, even though it's really tragic, but it's also just very beautiful. And the writing in this and exploration of the French Revolution was incredible, beautiful. I have all these tabs of things I marked throughout the book. And yeah, it was incredible. And of course, to no one's surprise, my number 1 book that I finished in the month of February was Assassin's Apprentice by Robin Hobb. Loved this. I am going to be talking about this more in other videos. I've already talked about it in some videos, so I'm not going to say much more about it. But suffice it to say, I love it, and I'm so excited to be in this world, even though I'm a little stressed having to read it while I'm also reading the Cosmere, but also excited. It's like an excited stress. Okay, a couple things that I'm currently working on. Like I said, there's one that I do think I'll be able to finish by the end of the month. I'm listening to the audiobook of this, and it is Anne of Green Gables by Ellen Montgomery. I plan to read The Diary of Anne Frank for a modern classic to add to my TBR, but it just didn't quite work out, and I want to physically read that one. So I decided to listen to the audiobook of this instead to take the place of The Diary of Anne Frank as I'm reaching for that goal of reading more of my 20th century literature that I own. I am loving this. Like I said, I think I'm going to finish it. I read that much, I listened to that much in one day, and I could have listened to more. I just wasn't in a position to. So I really think I'm going to finish it in the next few days before the end of the month, and suffice it to say, it's probably a new favorite comfort read. I'm really enjoying it. I love Anne as a character. I have seen the films that were released, I believe, in the 90s or early 2000s. I think it was the 90s. Anyway, and loved those. So of course I was expecting to enjoy this, but I'm really liking it. So I'm listening to the audiobook by Rachel McAdams, which is just even greater. And then the one I'm not sure I'm going to finish by the end of the month, but I'd like to try, is Royal Assassin by Robin Hobb, continuing with the series. I'm really enjoying it so far. I do intend to have a vlog in which I'm going to be focusing primarily on this. That's the same vlog that I mentioned Wessex Tales in, and then I'll probably discuss a little bit more Anne of Green Gables, but mostly it will be focused on this. Like I said, I'm not sure if I'm going to quite make it by the end of the month. I'm almost 200 pages into it, and it's about 650 pages, so just under a third of the way through. So I have potential to be able to finish it in the next few days, but I really don't know how it's gonna go, so we'll see, but I'm hoping to at least read a good chunk of this before the end of the month, if not all of it. So those are my currently reading, my what I read in February, so let's get into pile of possibilities for March. First of all, I mentioned another Febregency thing that I would like to start at least by February 28th. I would love to get started on this. It's an audiobook that I'm planning to listen to, and it's Romantic Outlaws by Charlotte Gordon. Since I'm so sure I'm going to get through Anne of Green Gables pretty fast, I expect to be able to hopefully start the audiobook for this on February 28th. Even if I just listen to a little bit of it, I just would like to have it as part of Febregency in some way, so I'm going to try to aim for that. This is a nonfiction about Mary Wollstonecraft and her daughter Mary Shelley, and I've heard incredible things about it, so hopefully I'll be able to get into this, like I said, on the day that I hope to. I also am intending this to be my read for Herstoryathon, which is being hosted by Charlotte at Coiny Reads, and I can't remember what the other host's name is, but I will make sure both of their channels are linked below. And Herstoryathon is throughout the month of March, and it's about reading books about women in history, and really the goal is to read at least one, so this is going to be the one that I'm going to listen to. Then I have a vlog that I really would like to do in the month of March. I'm not going to tell you what the theme is because I just want it to be a surprise for that vlog, but if you've been on my channel for a while and have a great memory, you may be able to guess. I'm sure most of you won't, but potentially someone might. So anyway, I have 3 books for this vlog. The first is How to Be a Victorian by Ruth Goodman, a dawn to dusk guide to Victorian life. It is exactly what it sounds like. It is a book about the daily lives of people in the Victorian period. I've heard great things about it, and I intend to read it throughout the month of March. So I'll just be reading a few pages a day and get through it hopefully by the end of the month. Next, I have Daughters of Sparta by Claire Heywood. This is a story about Clytemnestra and Helen of Troy, a fictionalized story, and I've heard great things about it. Claire Heywood also recently released another book called The Shadow of Perseus, which I've been so excited to get to. It's one of my pre-orders that I was most looking forward to receiving, so I'd like to read this and see if I enjoy her writing and hopefully go into Shadow of Perseus with a better idea of what my feelings about it might be. Then the third book for this vlog is Cecily by Annie Garthwaite. This is a fictional story following Cecily Neville, the mother of both Richard III and Edward IV. I've heard good things about it, and I'm really looking forward to getting to it. And it actually kind of works for Herstoryathon. Of course, it's not nonfiction, but it is about a woman in history. I guess you could also argue that this one, in a way, is as well, even though they're more legendary figures as opposed to necessarily real people, but they potentially could have been based on real people. So anyway, that will be read as well for that vlog. Then I know myself, I'm probably only really going to get through those books, but knowing myself, I know that potentially I'll end up really needing to read a classic. So I have a few options for a classic that I could read. First of all, if I just end up being in a Victorian mood, I think I'm going to try to go for Lady Anna by Anthony Trollope. This is the one book from my Victober TBR this last year that I did not get to. It's been a long time since I've read any Trollope, like almost a year, and I just really want to get back into him, so potentially I could read this if the Victorian mood strikes. However, if I'm able to be in a mood where I will read 20th century literature, I have a few options for that. So first of all, I do have The Diary of Anne Frank. I really want to get to this. Hopefully this doesn't turn into one that's on a whole bunch of TBRs and I never actually read it. Potentially it could be on like one more TBR and I finally actually read it then, but for now we're going to see if I can get to it this month, if I'm in the mood for it. Or if not, I do also have Why Sargasso Sea by Jean Rhys. I really want to read this. It's a retelling of Jane Eyre from the perspective of a mysterious character that I'm not going to discuss because there are spoilers for Jane Eyre if I mention it. So anyway, it's a retelling of Jane Eyre and I've heard great things about it. So, plus it's short, which could be very helpful. This next one's also pretty short. It is The Reading Life by C.S. Lewis. This is just a collection of essays and quotes regarding reading that are by C.S. Lewis, and it's a really pretty cute little book, and it might be a nice kind of different tone for my month if I end up wanting to pick it up. And then I have here My Cousin Rachel by Daphne du Maurier, because it has literally been probably 2 years since I've read a Daphne du Maurier. I've only ever read 2. I've read Rebecca and Frenchman's Creek, and this has been languishing on my shelves for all this time, and so I would love to get to it as well at some point this year even. But yes, if I end up kind of more in a mysterious type mood, then this will be a good option for that. Other than that, I don't really know what's going to happen this month. Hopefully I can get through at least all of those vlog options, my audiobook that I'm for sure listening to, and at least one classic would be great, and then finish Royal Assassin if I haven't already. Potentially I could start Assassin's Quest, the final book in the Farseer trilogy by Robin Hobb, but I don't think I'll finish that for sure in the month of March. I think that will be one that I'd start and not finish. I also am working on The Mort to Arthur, and I technically still have Canterbury Tales on my currently reading. That's been on there since last June, and I'm trying to get myself to at least periodically read a story out of that, so I may read a couple of stories from that this month. We'll see what happens. So yeah, that's it. That's what I'm reading this month, potentially what I read last month. So let me know down below what you've read in the month of February, some of your favorites. If you've read any of the books I've mentioned today, your thoughts on them, I would love, love, love to hear them. Side note that I keep forgetting, thank you to all of the people who have recently been subscribing to me. Over the past several months, I've received a lot more subscribers, and I'm so grateful for you and for those. I've had a lot more interactions as well, a lot more comments on my videos, so I thank you all so much for engaging with me. It's just a wonderful thing about BookTube to be able to engage with other readers, even if it's only brief comments back and forth. There's just a sense of kinship and connection with this hobby that I love that I just really appreciate having. So thank you for all of you new subscribers and all of those who have been here for a while and all of those who are interacting with my videos. Like I said, I really appreciate it. Anyway, thank you so much for watching this video, and I hope you are having a wonderful reading week. I will see you next time. Bye!